Hello everybody, my name is Colin Hickey, and I am going to be presenting you with the comparative analysis between a royal Viking burial and the ongoing tale of King Sutton Hoo. What I will be talking to you about is the introduction to these two burial sites, the research question presented with these burial sites, the comparative analysis of these two sites, the similarities and differences, and the archaeological methods used to discover these burial sites as well as the artifacts within. Now, for the article, A Royal Viking Burial, which is about a ship named the Oseberg. It was discovered in 1904 Slagen, Norway, and this article discusses about the ship itself, the numerous amounts of skeletal remains, which included 2 humans, numerous skeletal remains of oxes, horses, and even dogs, and the grave goods, which included kitchen utensils, as well as jewelry, which helped shed light into the life of the Norse over 1,000 years ago. In the ongoing tale of King Sutton Hoo, in this article, it talks about a ship that was buried in Anglo-Saxon England that seemed to be the burial site King Sutton Hoo due to the fact of the area around it, as well as the artifacts that were discovered beneath the soil, which seemed to have had great value and presented a wealthy status, and as well as the intricate craftsmanship of the ship itself and the goods buried with it. The research questions. So the research question for a royal Viking burial is, what was the purpose of the Oseberg ship? And the research question for ongoing tale of Sutton Hoo is, where did the Sutton Hoo king's families and supporters live? Now, with the comparative analysis between a royal Viking burial and the ongoing tale of King Sutton Hoo. As you can see, we have 2 pictures on the right. The top one is of an ornate helmet found within the Sutton Hoo burial. The one on the bottom is a sleigh found within the Oseberg ship. Now, these 2 articles and burial rituals is that both have grave goods that represent wealth, status, weapons to use in the afterlife, and kitchen/feasting sets that represented how they lived and how their economy was. The Oseberg ship had 2 female remains that were surrounded by jewelry indicating their status and wealth, and these jewelry were made of gold, silver, as well as many very precious gemstones and stones. The Sutton Hoo burial was filled with grave goods, including ornamental weapons made for royalty, which just means that they had precious gemstones within the hilts, the handles, and were made of silver, and also had gold inlaid in them. They also had gold jewelry and that ornate helmet within the burial site itself. The similarities and differences of goods between the 2 sites. Now, the similarities is that both had rich and expensive items that would tell us whether these people were of great importance or not. And most commonly would be gold and silver jewelry. Now, both would have weapons and armor to signify warriors of high status in what their role was in life and what will be in the afterlife. Now, the differences would be animal sacrifices. Now, both had animal sacrifices, but they both had a big difference between them. Norwegian burials tend to have some livestock within their burials, and they would have companion horses, maybe a couple dogs, but they also had a lot more than what an Anglo-Saxon burial would have. Anglo-Saxons would maybe have a couple horses, a couple dogs, that would be it. And as well as the artifacts would be found within each burial pertaining to religious means. Sutton Hoo burials would have Christian artifacts, crosses, Bibles, and the Norse had pagan artifacts, have Celtic knots, raven statues, statues of their gods. For the archaeological methods used for them, now the archaeological method used for the royal Viking burial was dendrochronology, which is the dating of tree rings within trees or within wood of certain structures, for example, the Oseberg ship. Now, the scientists, they use this method to analyze the tree ring patterns of the wood, a part of the ship, as well as the burial chambers, so they could figure out when these trees were chopped down and when the construction took place. and for the archaeological method used for the ongoing tale of King Sutton Hoo, the Sutton Hoo burial, would be systematic metal detection, which had a couple uses for this burial site. Now they had a large scale survey, and they also had much smaller devices, say, any normal type of metal detection. But the ones they had were a lot more advanced to where they could detect certain metals deeper down within the earth. And this would kind of detect any type of artifacts that could be hiding from scientists' point of view, which is what they use a large scale survey for. Now, for the normal systematic metal detection, they would use it for, coin, tools, weapons, trinkets, any type of metallic artifacts that could be within this burial site. And for that, thank you so much for watching and for listening to this presentation. I hope you all have a nice day.